This is a video supporting the Colorado Senate Bill 2015-095, the Colorado Manufactured Home Community Act, that's going to be heard before the Senate Finance Committee on February 3rd. My name is Sam Alschuler, and I'm a manufactured homeowner in Boulder. In 2010, I also supported Colorado Senate Bill 156 concerning manufactured home communities in Colorado. The process gave me a lot to think about, and so I spent 4 years thinking about it, focusing on stuff like political economics, land use issues, and property rights. This is the fiscal note for the bill. It describes costs and revenues associated with the legislation to the state. The cost to the state is projected to be a modest $170,000 per year. This would fund the new Colorado Manufactured Housing Division that would use the fund for enacting a dispute resolution program for manufactured communities in Colorado. In addition to that, they could use the fund for specific purposes laid out in the Manufactured Home Communities Act of Colorado. These purposes include subsidizing rents for low and fixed income residents, assist in the relocation for residents during a change of use in the property, and assist in infrastructure repair for aging communities. The fiscal note states that this could be a potential increase in state revenue because these funds could be leveraged with funds from other sources. For example, there are 100,000 manufactured homes in Colorado, 5.7% of the housing stock. If each of these homeowners contributed just $15 towards a fund each year, there would be $1.5 million added to the fund annually. And then that could be leveraged with funds from other sources. This could create a valuable safety net for community issues that can arise in the manufactured home market due to conflicts of property rights. My home was worth $60,000, and as such, it's certainly in my interest to contribute towards community issues. Now, to be sure that spending money is justified, we need to ask ourselves a few questions first. First of all, is there a problem that spending the money would help with? Two, is there some other a market solution that might be more appropriate than government intervention? And finally, is the proposed government response the appropriate one, or is there a better response to the problems? It's pretty straightforward to see how this dispute resolution program that would be administered by the division is a good answer to these questions. Landlord-tenant issues that can arise from two people having property at the same space can really vary from things like, is the tenant allowed to wash their car on the property, to issues regarding changes in water service, to who are the people that the tenant can sell their home to, etc. The list can go on and on. Now, to mediate these issues requires that both parties have desire to mediate, and going to court is exactly the opposite. It's very hostile. Through dispute resolution, though, parties can bargain, which leads to more efficient outcomes than government laws that just allocate who gets which property rights for each of these varied issues. However, some parts of the bill, like infrastructure repair assistance, aren't quite as straightforward, and so we need to look closer into how the mobile home industry in Colorado operates and the decisions people make in order to really understand these questions. Now, supply and demand are going to work a little differently in real estate than in other markets of goods. Real estate is a capital expense, and so it's fixed in the short run. Additionally, every parcel of land has a unique location value signature that is determined not only by what amenities are on the land, but also by what other nearby parcels the land has access to. So as modeled in this graph, communities that are closer to the central business district on the left-hand side of the graph can charge more rent. So the communities A, B, C, D, and E do not lie exactly on the line because there are other things that determine value besides proximity to the central business district. These can include whether the property has a swimming pool, whether water outages are frequent, whether gardens allowed, etc. Now, a consumer that decides to live in one of these communities will make trade-offs between what a particular community provides and the choice of homes in those communities. Maybe a nicer home in a far community is more preferable than a smaller home in a closer community. For most real estate consumers, the choice between owning a home and renting a home is an investment decision. Real estate buyers make payments each period for that period's portion of the net present value of the real estate. The net present value is calculated from the future value of the real estate, which is assumed to appreciate as an investment. Renters, on the other hand, do not pay for the future value of real estate. They pay for the current price of rent, and this leaves them free to save and invest the difference. The renter wins if the rate of return on investment is greater than appreciation, and the buyer wins if appreciation grows faster. The investment strategy utilized by manufactured homeowners is a combination of the other two strategies. The homeowner still needs to pay a mortgage and interest on that mortgage, but equity in the home is assumed to depreciate. Although it's not always true. Some homes last a very long time when well maintained. But it's kind of like a double whammy, as the consumer is both paying interest on the loan and losing appreciation. However, being responsible for the structure saves greatly on rent. The payment is reduced not only because of the cost of the structure being paid by the homeowner, but when someone rents an apartment structure, the landlord is responsible for providing all the repair services. When the tenant owns a structure, they can do self-repairs or have services done on a timeline of their choosing when the benefit of the repair equals the cost. This creates the phenomenon known as market affordability, which is almost unique to the manufactured home industry, leaving excess funds for savings or other consumption. But as such, to play this strategy, the consumer is invested in the community, a community that is rented. When a real estate investor rents out a property, they exchange an amount of property rights for the rent. The renter then has rights to usage of the property. Now, this example here is for a community that can charge between $100 and $50 for rent because of its location. I chose those numbers to make it easier math. The purple line represents a trade-off between rent and property rights. Giving away all the rights will charge the maximum amount of rent at best. Might even be unfeasible, that the owner doesn't want to give away all their rights. Or on the other hand, a landlord might be very strict and hold a lot of property rights themselves, in which case people would be willing to pay less to live there. Hence, the purple line is downward sloping. Now, it's also convex because of increasing returns to specialization. Another way landlords can influence rents is through changes in their occupancy rate. This trade-off is very similar to the property rights trade-off, downward sloping and convex for the same reasons. Both changes in occupancy and changes in property rights, for the purpose of affecting rents, can be done by landlords in the short run. Now, in the short run, operating costs are fixed, so the owner wants to maximize revenue. Revenue is shown as the area of the cube on the picture because it is rent times occupancy. Basically, it's the total amount of money the property brings in. Revenue can also be broken up into profits and costs. Basically, it's profits plus costs equals revenue. The profits are the net operating income of the property. Now, owners have a thing called a fixed cap rate, which is dependent upon their desired rate of return. So, if an owner has a cap rate of 10%, then an estimated property value is 10 times the net operating income. Now, in the long run, costs are not fixed. By adding time to the model, an increase in operating costs is shown because of increased repairs needed for aging infrastructure that depreciates. At the same time, the land value is assumed to be appreciating. So, in order for a community order to maintain a fixed cap rate, infrastructure replacement is needed. However, infrastructure replacement is not possible. This is a big problem for the market. It's much cheaper to build new infrastructure than it is to replace it. This is because the structures of the homeowners are on top of the community owner's infrastructure. It would be cheaper to just evict the homeowners and rebuild new infrastructure or rebuild infrastructure on some new parcel than to try and dig sideways underneath the homes or pay the thousands of dollars it costs to recite each of the manufactured homes. However, because the homeowners are invested in the community, Colorado law prevents eviction without cause. So the conflict of property rights creates a point of discontinuity between the costs of the past and the costs of today. Hence, the community owner must resort to change in land use if permitted by city planning in order to retain his return on investment. However, change in land use is not permitted in some cities by way of zoning or other restrictions because of the affordability that manufactured home communities provide. As such, government action is appropriate to avoid closures and changes in land use when incentives have been malaligned by conflicts of property rights. Conflicting property rights go both ways in manufactured home communities. This here is a very similar problem, but instead of the community owner's infrastructure depreciating, we have the home depreciating over time. A problem in manufactured home communities is when a home depreciates to the point where it becomes a liability. The increasing repair costs create an incentive for the homeowner to abandon the home, and when this happens, the community owners end up paying the cost of disposal, which is very similar to the cost of moving, thousands of dollars. Hence, this is a situation where community owners bear the costs, but not the control. There are market responses to risk sharing in manufactured home communities. Manufactured homeowners have what is called a high elasticity of demand, which means they're willing to bear increased costs when those costs are borne by the community. So when risks without control are borne by the community owners, rents go up. And then when risks without control are borne by the homeowners, like when the community closes, they pay for that too, either having to pay to move their home or to pay to have it demolished. The other market response to risk is the insurance market. This is the website for Foremost Insurance, the #1 market leader for mobile home insurance in the nation. And on this website it lists the things they cover, like fires and lightning and explosions and burglary and water damage, etc. But community closures is not listed as covered. The insurance company sometimes covers moving costs during closures or change in use, but only sometimes and only for some communities, and then only after a comprehensive review process has taken place. And then, even then, this is only effective if the home is movable and only if there is some site to move it to. The real truth behind all the graphs is that when a manufactured home community closes, it is scary and frightening. People have to pay for the disposal of their homes that they're still paying the mortgage on. Friends and neighbors are lost. These are non-tangible benefits to stable communities that cannot be measured with finance. These are essential parts of the human experience. It is something worth contributing towards. Please support Senate Bill 2015-095, the Manufactured Community Act of Colorado.